Hello, I'm Jim Miller. I'm here with Ron Bowers and Henry House. The Flip Side starts right now. Welcome to the show. We are happy to have with us from the Boy Scouts of America, or Scouting.org, Scott Paddock. Scott, welcome.
How are you doing, Jim?
Doing well, thank you. Hope you are
Ron
as well.
And Jim.
Yes. So we want to talk tonight a little bit about Scouting. I know there's been a number of changes in your organization, and Scouting, I think, at least in Washington County, is always changing.
No.
Let's talk about, first of all, the structure of Scouting. And can you, from the national organization down to our local council, kind of explain the structure of Scouting?
Well, Scouting is owned by the community, so what we go nationally. National then provides councils with the ability to bring the program to the youth, and we as a council then bring it to the community. So the structure is almost identical from the top to the bottom. You have you have the president and control boards, and then you have the people that do the work, and then you come down and you have the president and control boards, like we have at our council, as executive board, the regular board, and then you have the staff with the scout executive, and then those underneath of him with the, like myself and our support staff.
Okay, so from a practical perspective, though, how does the Mason-Dixon Council, which is, I believe, where we are, how does that compare to other councils, just in terms of what we offer, the programs, the facilities, the assets?
Well, the biggest difference about the Mason-Dixon Council is we're a small council. We're one of the few councils left in the United States our size, because we are functioning. We're in the black. We have awesome programming for the kids. We have a summer camp that is doing well with its financing. It's self-sustaining, and just like everything in Scouts, it's about having fun, and it works.
Okay, and within the Mason-Dixon Council, about how many troops do you have, and what is your geography that you're actually governing or providing services to?
We have about 100 units that's split between Boy Scouts, Cub Scouts, venturing, and exploring.
Okay.
And we cover Fulton County, all of Fulton County, all of Washington County, and southern Franklin County.
Interesting.
Go into a little bit of the organization, how it originally began years and years ago, because it wasn't the Mason-Dixon Council.
Oh, it's grown over the years. Scouting started, it was chartered in 1910.
Yes.
It was brought to the United States by William D. Boyce, who happened to be in England and got lost on a foggy night and ran into this young gentleman wearing this handsome uniform and said, I need to get somewhere. And the young man said, well, I'll take you. And he led him to where he needed to be, and then Mr. Boyce said, let me give you something for your time. And he says, nope, I'm doing a good deed, and I don't want your money. And he helped him out, and to this day, we don't know who that boy is, but he lives in infamy in Scouting because of that, we have Scouting in the United States as strong as it is.
Is the Mason-Dixon Council still as intricately involved in its communities as it has been in the past?
Oh, we couldn't exist if we weren't.
Okay.
You know, we have more requests for help and support than we can fill in a week, in a month, in a year. We are always getting requests from our local charity organizations asking for help with parking, setting up, doing different chores and tasks. And
presenting the flag and different things
all
in different organizations.
All the time. You know, we get that request. That's probably the #1 request. Can you come and do the flag ceremony for our organization? And you know, we try to fulfill. Now, keep in mind that, you know, each unit decides what it's going to do and how it's going to do it. We can only propose the potential, but for the most part, we do try to help as many people as we can.
And just for one thing, because we're going to be doing a Veterans Day program, you know, not too distant future. Mm-hmm. Explain the ceremony that they use to do away with worn flags and the ceremony that goes in to deal with old flags.
I'm glad you said it that way, because all too often people who don't know, who have been to one, say when you burn the flag, and that's not what we do.
Right.
We retire flags, and as the flag as a whole, it's respected, it's a symbol of our country, and to retire it, we disassemble it so that it is in its parts, and then we proceed with a ceremony. And there are many different ceremonies out there. You know, you have the red for the blood and the sacrifices, the white for the valor, the blue for the honor, and you know, the stars represent the different states in our country. And you know, we then go through our ceremony, and then the flag is turned into ash, and then it is brought to a sacred spot, VFWs, things like that, churches, Boy Scout camps.
Okay.
Interesting. So you had mentioned earlier that we're one of the smaller, or maybe even the smallest, one of the smallest scouting councils in the United States. Is that a function of our population? Is that a function by design? What drove us to that?
Success. We're still a small council and allowed to exist because we operate in the black. You know, we're successful in fundraising, providing the program to kids. We were in the top 2% in growth in the country last year for our size of a council. And, you know, we're measured bronze, gold, or bronze, silver, and gold. And the council is a gold council. We've met criteria for the past 3 years at least, which is unheard of, because every time you reach the bar goes up.
Right.
And it keeps going up, and we've worked very hard to make the Mason-Dixon Council a well-represented piece of our community and service to our youth.
So outside of the troops, because I know there are numerous volunteer positions in each of the troops, so I'm going to ask you to speak to those singularly. So what are the volunteer positions within a troop or within a Cub Scout pack? But from the council perspective, what types of volunteer positions do you have, and what type of what is the response to that from the community in terms of filling those positions?
Well, people that respect scouting want to be part of something that's successful. I just left the Pennsylvania contingents within our council and came back to Washington County, and we do have a few little holes. We're filling those as fast as we can find volunteers who are willing to do the work. But like in a troop and in the council, we have a president, we have program people for camping, advancement, training. And troops, we have the scoutmaster. Above them is the committee. So you have a committee chairman and at minimum of 2 other adults. In most cases, there's 5 to 10, depending on the size of the unit. And then you have them then bringing the leadership to the youth. So in Boy Scouts, you have a senior patrol leaders, which then govern over the groups of boys in the unit. And at the Boy Scout, or at Scouts BSA level, forgive me, but at the Scouts BSA level, the kids run the show. So we as adults sit back and just try to govern and make sure that they're safe and doing what they need to be doing to grow and become better citizens. Cub Scouting, the Cub Master with his committee and den leaders then distill the program to the boys and girls that they're working with. And again, there's a committee there that helps them with advancement and things like that. Some people like to do paperwork, some like to be hands-on. But you know, there's always a job for somebody if they're willing to put the time in.
Now, scouting obviously has evolved since the years that Jim, myself, or Ron participated in it, and probably yourself too. And you've been part of that evolution. What are the biggest challenges that you've seen to overcome over the last, decade or more?
The biggest challenge is perception.
Okay.
People just aren't interested in getting out. We offer an outdoor experience that's far supersedes anything that people could get sitting in their living room.
On their phone.
Or on the phone,
Yeah.
yeah. You know, it's camping, hiking, biking, fishing, horseback riding, canoeing, kayaking. You know, that is open to everybody to do in the program. Back when I was a kid, you know, the leadership areas were a little bit different. Now we're two deep leaders.
Right.
People have to be trained, and but I would say the biggest change from when scouting started is we don't have to tame a wild horse anymore. You know, we have compasses and GPSs where and there are compasses in these
Yes, there are.
that you could still use and learn with. But, you know, the tools are a little bit different. You know, we're not using shovels and picks. You know, we have computers and technology to help guide and inspire the kids as well.
Let folks know how Camp Santaquippi in Fulton County keeps this whole thing together, your programs that you're talking about.
Well, Camp Santaquippi is what we refer to as heaven on earth. We have put in over $5 million in renovations and things. And with that, we pack the kids in for summer camp, and we have off-season camping, and we try to use that because you're outdoors.
But that's what helps you keep everything together that you've dealt. That's the constant in scouting since the Mason-Dixon Council started.
Well,
I know you've got another block on Santaquippi. I know I jumped ahead, but I was trying to pull together what a common theme is since the Mason-Dixon Council's been there. That's been one of the common denominators.
Well, it's scouting.
Yes.
You know, Santaquippi exists for the sole purpose of offering a variety of programs for our youth. And then the troops, when we're in the off season, can go up there and use the camp to provide the programs, you know, cooking outside, hiking, you know, doing some of the many things like we have our Winter Mountain Man program, which is now done in the spring with adults and kids together because there's too many people want to get outside and have that kind of fun, but you know, they're doing blacksmithing and tanning hides and making, you know, old pioneering type clothing, which is a lot of fun. So it's
Welcome back. We're here again with Scott Paddock from the Mason-Dixon Council of BSA. Scott, we started talking about Santaquippi.
Yes.
So talk about some of the unique experiences of Santaquippi in a little more detail. I know you talked about the Mountain Man, seeing my son attend Santaquippi for the last several years. I've seen kind of the tail end of that program. I also know that he got a program at Santaquippi that was able to provide him the opportunity for employment at a local pool this year. So can you talk about some of the specific programs?
Well, you're talking about the pool. That's our waterfront where they can earn the BSA Guard, which is accepted across the board now with the American Red Cross. Used to be the only accepted lifeguard training. But we have open water training as a big part of what we do in our Boy Scout training that enables the kids to be a little more adept versus looking at a clear pool type training. Which, speaking of which, that is a new amenity we have at Camp Santaquippi now. We put in a pool, and this summer was the first year of using it. And people were concerned about the lake and concerned about this and what's going to happen. And it's all a beautiful, wonderful addition to our camp. The lake is still there. The kids are still swimming in the lake. They're canoeing, kayaking, having lots of fun. And we have the swimming pool now where we are, keep your fingers crossed, going to be looking at offering some scuba, introduction to scuba. You can't do that in the lake when you're opening up because our lake is a little cloudy. But you know, the other things that we have at camp, and I'll just kind of mentally drive through camp. We have our handicraft set up where the kids go in and they can make things, you know, to take home to mom and have fun making the things that they dream about or see in the books. Because a lot of what scouting is about is taking the past that we have, like we talk about pioneers and Indians and things like that, folklore, and use that as a way of teaching leadership. We have our Lacuzen program, which is Lenape for Reach Higher. So the first year kids come into camp and they take on this awesome, it's been recognized nationally because the kids learn the basics of scouting. So it gets them through, and we talk about ranks. You know, a kid starts as a scout, learns the 8 points of, you know, the scout sign, the handshake, the oath, and all that. Then he earns tenderfoot, which means that he is learning to use the tools and becoming a part of the troop, learning how to cook. Then he does second class. And again, that's building on those skills, scout skills and things. And then it's first class, and that means once he reaches first class, he has mastered all of the basic skills of scouting, or she. And so then you have leadership. So then you move into STAR, where they have to hold a position in the troop for 6 months and lead. They have to do service hours now, and then merit badges become part of the advancement, and they will then seek one of 190 some different merit badges, from dentistry to automotives to atomic energy to cooking. You know, it's the whole gambit of everything from conservation to sustainability, you know, with the new merit badges that we have. So, and that's STAR in life. And then once they reach the rank of life, then it's to move into doing an Eagle project, giving back to the community that has given so much to us as scouts. And their service project then is something that they lead scouts, parents, their friends, and it usually happens when they're in the high school age, so they've got lots of kids to fish from for their help, but it's up to them to lead and show leadership to those people to complete a project. And I could talk about my son's Eagle project. He built a pavilion at the Fairview Outdoor School to help with their growing of chestnuts and the replanting of chestnut trees. And all they wanted was a board with a roof to keep the weather off of the plaques that they wanted to show. And in his wanting and to do a little bit bigger, he built a small pavilion where the kids can now sit and study the plaques and learn about Chestnut Grove, is where the pavilion sits out at Fairview. And just took it a step further, and that's what kids do. Do kids have to do that style of project to earn the Eagle rank? No. It's about leadership. And an example of that would be a kid could build a birdhouse as long as he shows leadership to people in doing so. So he's got to structure the project. He's got to figure out how to fundraise to make the project happen. He has to pull together, if there's permits, things like that, through adults. Is the kid going to be driving a backhoe? No. So he has to line all that up as well. And, you know, that's part of that Eagle project. And that builds for kids. And I tell you, talking to leaders in our community and the kids that have earned it, when they tell somebody they've earned the Eagle rank, it moves them to the top of the list. And in the military, there's pay grade raises for having that training up front. And it's a very worthwhile thing that young men and women can now do to improve their position in our society.
Even college scholarships, true.
And college, yep. There are scholarships out there for community service and things like that, that the Eagle project weighs into
Qualifies.
that. Yep, qualifies for that.
Okay, and we talked briefly off camera, but training for your volunteers. And
Yes.
Can you explain a little bit about what the requirements are, how someone can get involved and participate in the Mason-Dixon Council?
Yep, any adult, you don't have to have kids involved, or you could have had kids and now it's time you want to get back, you're an empty nester. Contact us. We do need for you to do two things prior to you starting. One is take our youth protection training, which is a brand new program. You know, you hear lots of crazy things going on in the world. Well, we're trying to stave all that off by upfront conditioning and learning that this is how you act when you work with the kids. this is how the kids should respect and respond, no bullying, and the little things, because cell phones can present different hazards, and technology in itself can, and you learn about that. And then once you've completed that, then you could fill out an adult application and file it with the council. And we then run a background check, and we have an extreme system that we go through to make sure that everybody is up to speed. And then you're allowed to start working with the kids in the units. And if you want to be a member in the district, it's the same thing. The difference is you don't go through a unit to become a member. You come through one of the executives at the council. So if you just want to be the district chairman, for Washington County, we're looking right now for that position. We have an awesome gentleman who's been there for a while, and he's ready to step down. And we're looking for an adult who has passion for youth and wanting to help us build the Washington County Scouting programs.
Scott, with all the units that you have, each of those units, as I take it, whether it's a Cub Pack or a troop, has to be sponsored by somebody or raise the money to be sponsored. Do you have sponsorships open now?
Well, it's
Like a Rotary or some organization that will sponsor a troop and a pack?
Well, what we have is we provide what we call charters.
Okay.
So we are actually owned by our community. You know, somebody says, oh, I'm going to call Scott. I could get a couple of scouts over here to help out with this project. Well, what happens is they call me, and because of protection and privacy, things like that, then I will forward the information to the troops, and then the troops will decide what they do, because through their charter organization, which actually owns the scouting program in our community. So we have churches, like you said, Rotaries, and you've got Kiwanis, Exchange, all those groups that support what we do, the Lions Club. Don't want to forget them, because they have a big part in several of our scout reach groups. But you know, they want to provide scouting, and then they come to us, and we do the paperwork, sign them up, and train them so that they start off on the right foot. And anybody can really offer a scout program in this community.
And they all have to go through certain either internet training or some type of training.
Everybody
and be
needs to be
certified.
trained, yeah.
Yes.
Everybody needs to be trained.
And there's training for each of the positions, correct?
There is.
Yes.
Yep, you have Scoutmaster training, which takes care of the Scoutmasters, Assistant Scoutmasters. Cub Master training, which does the same. You have committee training for Boy Scout troop, because it's a little bit different than a Cub Scout pack, because at the Boy Scout level, the kids, or correction, Boy Scouts BSA level, I got to catch myself on that, because we get going here and the passion starts flowing, and I got to make sure I keep things correct. But at the Scouts BSA level, the kids are running the show. At Cub Scouts, they're a little too young to do that, so the adults are running it. So they have a different angle that they have to structure and operate, but they're all still there so that the kids are having fun. And we want to make sure that they do that, and it's safe.
Okay. So back to the benefits piece of scouting. You talked about some of the benefits after they get out of school. But what do you see as the benefits while they're in the program, while they're participating? Do you see, are there studies or data points that suggest they do better in school, that they are more social? And also, how does it fit in with hopefully starting and maintaining physical fitness and all of those types of things?
Well, you just hit it all. That's what scouting does. It gets kids outside. Fitness is a big part. You look at the three things: character development, fitness, and citizenship. You know, those are the three areas that Scout focuses on. So we kind of hide all. If you went to a kid and said, you know, physical fitness, citizenship, and everything, what are they going to say? I don't want to do that. But when we say, hey, we're going hiking, camping, we're going to be outside, we're going to, you know, the kids say the pledge before every meeting. They have a prayer before every meeting. You know, that's part of that citizenship. The fitness is they're outside swimming, hiking, biking, doing all that stuff. And then character development happens when they have to lead one another, when they have to help each other in the course of being part of Scouts. And then you talk about, well, how else does it help and the benefit of scouting outside of that? Well, they're active all summer. You know, when school ends, scouting is really kicking into its high gear because that's when kids are heading off to Philmont, Sea Base, the Summit, Northern Tier, and those are our high adventure bases, or just going to summer camp. So they'll spend 7 days living in a tent out in the woods and enjoying the amenities of the summer camp and parents always say this, you know, my boy didn't earn enough merit badges. He didn't get. The point of summer camp is for kids to go and have fun. The byproduct of that is they'll earn merit badges. So they'll come home with the advancement because they're having a good time, you know. And I hate to say this, and he's going to laugh if he's watching the show. No names. But I had a young man who went to camp 2 or 3 times and came home, and I think in those 3 visits to camp, he earned 3 merit badges. And that's like, oh, that, you know, no. He had a blast. He kept going back to camp. He wanted to do this. And eventually he caught on that, you know, I need to do the paperwork too to take advantage of what I've already done. And he earned his Eagle Scout.
Welcome back. We're here with Scott Paddock again from the Mason-Dixon Council of BSA. Scott, we want to talk at this point a little bit about the recruiting effort. Obviously, you serve a lot of Scouts. How do young boys get into the system, and when can they get into the system?
Well, they can join anytime, and it's young boys and young girls, or boys and girls now. We do have in Washington County our big recruitment coming up here on September the 26th, which is a Thursday. And we're going to be going into all the elementary schools, talking to the kids. We've got signs that are going out, things that will show up in the newspaper. This, obviously, will have this opportunity to talk to the fans and the folks out there about signing up. But on September the 26th, everybody is encouraged to go to their elementary school. You don't have to find any special place. You don't have to spin around 20 times, do a back handspring. All you have to do is go to your elementary school from 6:30 to 8 on the 26th of September, and you can sign up for scouting. And if they come out and sign up, we're going to give them one of these awesome little kits where they'll be able to make themselves a pool car. It's not a Pinewood Derby, which is something else that we have that we'll talk about here in a second. But when the kids come out and sign up, it's just like, you know, signing up for a sport. The parents don't have to do anything extraneous or get ready for anything. All they got to do is come in, sign their kid up, and then they'll get the information they need and go to their scout meetings the next time they come.
How often do Scouts meet normally?
Once a week. You know, if there's no school, some units have no school, no Scouts rule, which helps the parents be able to plan. But for the most part, and the units meet virtually every day of the week at different units. So we have some units that meet on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, and there are some units that meet on Fridays.
So you can find a unit that fits your life schedule.
Yep.
You know, obviously it's a challenge in the new digital age. You know, kids who are, 7, 8 years old who would be just starting out in Scouts, they know how to operate the cell phone probably better than they would ever be able to pitch a tent. You have that as a challenge. How is Scouts evolving to attract the new age, or you're not, and you're saying, listen, we need to get back to a simpler time and teach the fundamentals?
If we did not keep up, we would be like a lot of things that happen in life, falling off the side of the track. The tractor's losing its wheels, it's losing things, and we're not doing that. Like I said before, we're using GPSs versus compasses, even though you can have both of them in your cell phone. We do have gaming as a merit badge now. Kids can learn how to make video games. For television production, in the olden days, they had to come to a place like this to do it. Now they can do television production on their phones. So we embrace technology as best we can.
Is there a structure to embracing technology?
There is.
Instead of just playing?
There is, yeah. You're not, we did at one time have and here it is, a pocket when flip phones were out. That tells you how old the shirt is. But we called this a technology pocket. So, you wouldn't lose or leave this behind. Well, you can see the size of these now. It's not going to fit in there. But, we did things like that to try to help control, keep things, in perspective. There are still groups out there, when you go hiking, this is more of a safety tool than anything. It's not there for entertainment. The kids are walking along doing this. That's not happening. They're walking along and they're actually enjoying the nature and things.
Now, if I wanted to sign my grandson, because my kids are old enough to have kids joining Scouts, if my grandson was interested or granddaughter was interested, what type of expense commitment are you looking from a family to join the Scouts?
Well, if they sign up now, it's going to be a little over $13, which is prorated. It's $2.75 a month.
Okay.
It's $2 a month for the Boys Life magazine, which is the BSA's part of literacy, and the kids then can read about what other kids are doing around the world and jokes. That was my son's big thing,
Okay.
But it's a literary. I can't think of what they call it now. I'm having one of those senior moments. It's the top magazine in the country because all the kids. It's one of those things that they push for kids to get.
Okay.
And dealing with all of the kids, since you took my question before about Philmont, if you deal with Philmont, the Gunnikischik Lodge, and the Order of the Arrow, something that attracts kids, how do you get that to them that they understand what it is? Because it's a big deal in scouting.
Well, number one, you have to sign up, and you have to get through all those little things first. So you got to be a Scout, second class, first class, to be part of the Order of the Arrow, which is the honor society in scouting. But and there you complete the requirements, and then you're elected into the honor society.
Now is the time, Ron. Actually, why don't you restate that question on high adventure scouting, and maybe Scott can get a little more deeply into
Yeah, you want to get into high adventure scouting and Philmont?
And Sea-Base. Don't forget Sea-Base.
Sea-Base.
Sea-Base is cool.
And the Summit, we have that
That's
as
right.
well, and Northern Tier. High adventure scouting it is really why a lot of the older kids are in there doing things. Younger kids, they're excited about all the stuff that happens when you go camping, when you're in your campsite, when you're hanging out with your buddies around the campfire, roasting marshmallows or telling ghost stories or just having fun. High adventure is when the kids really want to get out there and utilize their skills. So when you bring up Philmont, Philmont is, somebody's going to shoot me on this one, but it's tens of thousands of acres of trails that take you through Cimarron, New Mexico. You have the Tooth of Time, which was that one point when the pioneers were coming across, heading to California. When they saw that, they knew they were almost there. And, the kids hike and they learn, spend 10 days with everything they need on their back. And it is a life-changing experience. It's one of those things that, brings out the best in the kids that have gone on that.
And there are adults that go on.
Oh my gosh,
with
yes.
The kids, right?
They can't go without the adults. We have venturing, which has been around since '97, which has been a segment of our co-ed program, because that is a true co-educational activity that the kids can do, and that expands on what scouting does, 10 times. So these kids that, maybe never got into scouting but want to go camping, hiking, and do some of the fun stuff, and then have the safety and the training that goes with it, can start their own venture crew.
That'd be a good thing for you to take your son on later on to Philmont, Jim.
That's a
You
great
enjoy
idea,
that.
Ron.
We'll get out there and get some exercise.
There you go. I agree. So what about the other high adventure elements?
Well, we have Sea-Base, which Philmont is our hiking, backpacking, things like that. Sea-Base is what it is. You go down there and sail. They have an out island experience where you can go live on an island and you go out in the water and experience the different things, snorkeling, and they have sailing. oh my gosh, back in 2009, the Boy Scout troop my son was in took 3 venture crews to Sea Base, and you had one went on the sailing. They did the Bahamas on an old rigged out sailing ship, and the other 2 did the out island experience where they canoed 5 miles out to the island, lived on the island for a week, and they have these little deer and raccoons that run around and make it a more exciting experience, and living in the heat. And then they did go out on boats. They did go snorkeling in the reefs, and it was an experience that every one of those kids to this day still talks about.
And that's in Florida, correct?
And that's in Florida.
Yeah.
And then the Summit is our brand new high adventure base, but it's more organized around like a summer camp. So it's a build-up property that came to the possession of the Boy Scouts through the Bechtel Corporation. And they have put millions of dollars into developing it, into zip lining. There's water features there, shooting sports, archery, shotgun, pistol, all that is available there as well. And all of now, the national jamborees, and we just had the World Jamboree there this summer, where 45,000 people converged on this one little piece of land and lived and had an awesome good time.
Interesting. Henry?
So how has the integration gone with bringing the girls, opening up and expanding the Scouts program to girls? I mean, we're all from the old school, and nothing wrong with that, but I know these are the changes that needed to be made for the future.
Well, if you go back to Baden-Powell's first book, The Boy's Guide to Scouts, you can read in there, and it says this program is just as good for boys or girls as it is for boys. And back in 1905, the first girl patrol was functioning and doing great things. But if you take the mirror of that time, and I did a thing that I posted on our Facebook page because I thought this was very interesting. That in the newspaper it said, well, girls are not allowed to run, lift their arms over their head, go swimming, do all the things that is expected of you to be a good, solid scout. And so the Baden-Powell's sister took the group, and she and another lady when they came to the United States in 1935, started another organization. But that whole time, girls have always been involved, because as a dad, I had a daughter, and my daughter was very active with us because when we went out, she wanted to go. So when my son was a Cub Scout, that's a family program anyway, so you're taking the whole family as you go. And she did everything. She built Pinewood Derby cars. She went camping with us. She helped make the meals when we did our family camps and things. But the big difference was she never got any credit for it.
And now she has the same opportunity to participate in the camps that we just talked about as...
Yes. And she would have made a great Boy Scout, but she did do venturing. She did get the leadership that venturing has to offer, was the president of our VOA, Venturing Officers, here in the Mason-Dixon Council. And she's now a professional scouter at the Baltimore Area Council and works in Hartford County.
Okay.
And doing great things for scouts there, all because she loved and the fun that she had while she was part of the program.
Fantastic.
Without being a member.
Scott, you've been a member of Scouting and an advocate for Scouting as long as I can remember, even before you officially got the job within the Mason-Dixon Council. What drew you to Scouting? What do you see as the number one thing that Scouting does for our youth?
It's a value add. That, like I said, it goes back to character development, citizenship training, and where do we get any of that, in today's life? We do stand for and do the national anthem and things like that at sporting events, but do we really understand why? And all of that comes out through the fun of what we do. And, if you want to be outside, make it worthwhile. You know, there's lots of kids out there that might live on a farm, and you know, they can go hunting anytime they want, and they can do things outdoors, but usually they're not in a peer group. So through scouting, they can do it with their friends, be organized, and get recognition at the same time. So the value of it, for the biggest part of it is that you get to have fun and you get to recognition for doing that. And it helps you through life, so it's now measurable.
Ron, last
Well, I was
question.
going to say, the military is the same way. I mean, what's the difference between the scouting movement and the military movement?
Because you're not in the military as a
Well,
kid.
But as you get older in life, you are. And as they get older, look at how well kids can work together. And it's a good teaching point to work together. So it seems like maybe working together earlier in life has more benefits than waiting.
Always. I agree with you 100%.
We've got
And-
some politicians that need to join scouting, right?
Oh my gosh, yeah. Yeah, when you talk about the military offers an Eagle Scout, like you said,
Yes.
you know, several pay grades just for being an Eagle Scout. And we had a young man, just to give you a testimonial, who, good in sports, wonderful kid, went to college, just wasn't for him. Bumbled around trying to figure things out, decided, well, I'm going to go in the military, went to a couple of different areas, and finally signed up. I'll say he went to the Air Force during boot camp, brought the best of him out, and he was made the leader of the whole group. And this kid, he's an awesome kid inside and out, and I wish him the best. But man, I tell you what, it makes us all proud that he finally found what worked for him, and that scouting piece of it helped him get to that spot.
So summarize scouting in your elevator pitch. Why should people who are watching this show get involved in scouting with the Mason-Dixon Council?
Because we are a Gold Council. We have proven that we can help your kids grow, have fun, become better citizens in the community, and then go on and become sustainable adults in society. And it's about values, you know.
It is.
Scott, clearly the scouting organization in Washington County and across the nation has been a very successful endeavor. We are fortunate, and I remember as a scout and as a youth, the commitment of the adults that worked with me at that point, and I see the commitments of the adults that work with my son at this point. So we're very fortunate to have you and have leadership and have everyone that's involved with scouting from an adult perspective, and I would be willing to bet that most of them would tell you they get as much out of it as the kids do. Welcome to Fast Five, where our three panelists talk about 5 topics in 7 short minutes. Let's get started. Well, the first thing that we need to address is the fact that as of the filming date of this, and I know it'll be later than that when we air it, but it is 9/11. We're filming this on Wednesday, September 11, which obviously is a date that we all remember. Ron, what are your thoughts as we look back 18 years to the 9/11 attacks?
I remember sitting in my office that I had just brought from Annapolis to Hagerstown Property Tax Assessment Appeals. Antietam Broadband, Antietam Cable at that time had put television in our building, and it was over in the Child Care Administration. And one of the girls said there was an accident, an airplane just flew into the World Trade Center. We all gathered around the TV and the Child Care Administration and watched the rest of it unfold. Probably one of the most devastating days that I've ever encountered, not knowing if we were under attack, whether they were accidents or anything for a period of time.
Henry?
Well, I was actually at the physical therapy office with my daughter. She was having therapy for a torn ACL and saw the first plane fly into the building, and they repeated it. And it's like, this is not normal. There's no reason a plane should be in that airspace around that building. And it's starting to run through my mind, and next thing you know, another plane crashes. And now my cell phone's lighting up because work's calling me with concerns. Oh, well, we hear that there's a plane going towards Camp David, and we were making deliveries up there. And I just remember my oldest son, he came to me that night and he says, will they ever take this off the TV? Make them stop. Because we were in a perpetual loop. Didn't matter what station you were on. And for a moment in time, a snapshot in time, and my wife said this on the drive over tonight, do you think the media would coalesce like they did back then with the same sentiment about our nation being under attack? I said, yes, I would like to think that we would. But we have become so divisive as a nation over the last, 18 years. It makes me concerned about where we're going as a country. That country song, "Where Were You When the World Stopped Turning?"
Yeah.
Okay. And have we forgotten about the way we felt back then? So.
Yeah.
What was more important, the 11th or the 12th?
Well, I think, yeah, that's a good
We've
point.
got the 12th tomorrow.
Yeah, I
if
mean-
everybody put their Facebook pages down and didn't respond to anything, we wouldn't show the hate that we do. Everybody.
That's a really good point.
Just
And
everybody.
I mean,
just stay off of Facebook from posting anything negative.
Right.
And we would have a September the 12th where people came together.
Yeah. Well, and that's the key. And unfortunately, it takes an attack or a tragedy to bring our nation together, it seems like. And I hope we can find a way to get to that point of togetherness without the associated tragedy, because that's not the way to do it. I mean, what 3,000 plus that day,
Yeah.
and countless others that have died from cancer that was contracted as a result of what they breathed in, or other injuries, or other exposures they had during that. The fire and rescue people that weren't getting out of the building, they were running into the building to save the lives of others, and not just fire and rescue, but just general citizens. I heard the story today of a young man who made it out with some of his coworkers and so forth, and went back in a couple of times. And the last time that he tried to get out is when the second building crumbled, and apparently on top of him, because nobody's heard from him since. And they talked about the fact that he had called them to say, hey, I'm okay, but I'm helping people. Okay. John Bolton is left the building.
Talk about someone who lost the art of compromise.
Yeah, there you go. I got to tell you, and I'm going to jump in on this one first. I know they were polar opposites, and I understand that Bolton is suggested to be somewhat more of a warmonger than what President Trump is. But I think, in my view at least, he added something to that puzzle. And I don't know whether that was a good move or not. Ron?
I wonder why I picked him to begin with, but then again, it's a philosophical or an ideology within the Republican Party. Where are we now? Do we have the hawks that we used to have and the doves on the other side? The Republican Party now has a point. Which way are they going to go? Are they going to go to be tough on Iran, tough on North Korea, and those kind of things? Or are we going to use what they want to do now, negotiate with dictators, bring the dictators to the table, or the Taliban to Camp David? How would that all work? They were all things that he didn't want to do. He was ready to go into Iran and bomb them for shooting some drones down and interfering with some ships. So at what point now do we define what our national strategy is from the National Security Council? I mean, we're going into our fourth national security individual.
Right.
They're looking for him now. So what is our strategy?
Yeah.
Do we have one?
But my argument, and I wasn't a John Bolton supporter, but he certainly did lobby hard enough to try to become the National Security Advisor. Okay? Anytime he could get some airtime, he was out there promoting his case.
And he got it.
And he did get it. But where I'm concerned with is, I don't see that there is an issue with us attempting to resolve with words and come to some type of peace accord, or at least some kind of mutual understanding. It's far better to exchange hostile words and hopefully lower the rhetoric than to cost one American life. We may have to make that decision to put Americans' lives at risk. You know, we have this war that's going on in Afghanistan, and we had the war in Iraq that cost American lives, and we didn't see the return. We didn't have things at risk. We were battling the Taliban, but we didn't have to say, are we going to be able to have a peace accord with them? Probably never. But the fact that someone is actually willing and open to have a discussion, albeit maybe not the way I would have wanted to see a discussion take place, at least there was an effort to do so. But we have to continue down the path of maintaining the physical strength of our military to dissuade other entities from risking entangling us in additional wars.
I agree. And the military that we've been using for the last 3 years is the military that was there. We
Right.
haven't done anything to enhance the military.
And
over the
we're
last
doing
couple of
some-
years.
we're
We had a
doing
good
some upgrades.
military to
Right.
begin with. So for people to say we didn't have a good military is somewhat cloudy. So we have the military might. Now what do? I agree with you. There needs to be discussions. But during these discussions, are they still building up? I'm sure they are.
Is there any harm with us updating our equipment?
No, who said that?
And so that's not necessarily us building up. That's updating our equipment.
Well, I agree.
A presence in the Hagerstown community, the A-10.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great thing to update that
Sure
piece of
is.
equipment. So there's no harm in us updating our equipment.
I agree with a strong military.
Yeah.
Totally agree. I don't agree taking money away from the military to put it someplace else.
Okay.
Okay, let's talk about our next subject. Funkstown has approved an annexation that will allow some development to occur that will be part of Funkstown. Ron, what say you about that?
I think the Mayor Crampton put it quite succinct. He's got 250,000 gallons of available sewer. They're only using 45,000 gallons like today. And if it's a rainy day, he's using 85,000. I think one former newspaper a reporter was questioning were the water lines there that could handle it, were there fire hydrants that could handle it. The roads, you always get this problem of traffic. I get so tired of hearing about traffic. Traffic on that road, on Beaver Creek Road, used to really be bad a long time ago, and now it's practically, there's probably traffic, but nothing like it used to be. So I think that it's a prudent development that will help build up.
But it's
Funkstown.
complementary to
Build
the
the
city
tax
of
base.
Funkstown.
Yeah, it's complementary.
And it
to
builds a
Funkstown.
tax base.
Yes, and it builds these tax
That's a good thing
base.
for all of us.
Yes, it
Yes.
is.
Henry?
I'm in line with Ron on this. I think it's a good thing for the Funkstown community. It builds a tax base. They have the resources within the community to support the additional needs there. Honestly, it was valid points to bring up in question, but at the same point, the mayor answered them succinctly and said, "This is we already studied this. We're ready."
Yeah. U.S. poverty rates at lowest rate since 2001. Now, I don't want to get into who that's attributable to, because I think, Ron, you and I may have different answers. But
Well, if you really delve into it, there won't be any differences of opinion.
the fact of the matter is we've seen a drop in the poverty rate, which is a good thing for our country.
You've seen a drop in what poverty rate?
The U.S. poverty rate is at the lowest point, says the Census Bureau, who I hope we can
The
agree
wages
is an
hasn't gone
authoritative
up,
source.
and you don't have health
We're not
care.
talking about
Well,
wages.
you
We're
gotta
talking
talk about
No, we
everything.
don't have
Heck,
to
you
talk
don't.
about it. We have to talk about this, Ron. This is a
Oh.
data point. Now, if you're
It's not a data
suggesting
point.
this is a data point, then I would suggest you talk to the Census Bureau to tell them to stop taking it, because this is a data point. Every newspaper that I looked at had something about the fact that the U.S. poverty rate. Now, you can try to add in all the stuff you want, but the fact of the matter is the U.S. poverty rate is at the lowest rate since 2001. Fact.
And
That's
It's
a
at
good
the
thing.
lowest
Is that a
rate.
good thing? Yes or no?
for what it's done,
Is that a
it
good thing,
hasn't
yes or no?
benefited the poverty folks.
Okay. So you're going
Because
to
they
say
don't have
according to
health
this,
care.
there's less people in poverty by the U.S. classification of poverty
Money-wise,
since
but
2001.
there's more people susceptible to
according-
health care.
But we're not talking
And their
about
wages
healthcare.
haven't gone up.
We're not talking about health
They
care.
most
Well, you
certainly
gotta
have
talk
since
about it.
2001.
No, you don't.
You only want to talk about a portion of it, not all of it.
I want to talk about the
You wanna
specific
talk
data
about-
point that was presented by the U.S. Census Bureau.
But you're not talking about anything. So poverty is low.
Yeah. Okay, Henry, what say you?
I think it's it's just another positive mark for the way our economy is developing. Could wages be better? Yes, Ron. Wages can always be better.
They're lower now than they were 20 years ago.
They are not.
Well, but I'm sorry.
why-
We have not kept up. We have not kept up to what it was 20 years ago.
Ron, I agree with you by certain metrics. Okay, by certain metrics, it's different. Okay, a home that used to cost someone $40,000 now costs $250,000. Okay, if we look over a long span of time, when someone's making $10,000 a year and their home was $40,000, that's a great deal. Someone's making $50,000 and their house is $250,000, that's not such a great
So
deal.
they're still in poverty with no health care.
But Ron, what we're talking about is the data point here. We have less people at the poverty line today by the U.S. government definition of poverty than we did 18 years ago, and that should be something we should at least be happy about. Remove the other metrics from the equation. Isn't it better that there are less people that the government is classifying as in poverty?
Yes.
Okay, Apple unveils iPhone 11. What say you, Henry?
I'm an Android user, no comment.
All right, Haran.
I like the 3 cameras. There's 2 cameras and 3 cameras on the back. And I think that is so neat of how they did it. And to see how you can zoom in. You got 1 camera for zoom in. You've got 3 different types of the 11 and a Pro and a Pro Max, I think it is. And each one of them has, one has 2 cameras and the other one has 3. And with those cameras, what the cameras do. And the battery life, they picked up 5 more hours a day in battery life. So what they've done, they've added the cameras and added battery life to a phone. And I'm
So
not
you won't
sure.
have to recharge your phone halfway through the day now?
I probably
Probably
don't
not.
still-
I probably don't
Yeah,
do that now
I
anyway.
don't do it now.
Yeah. Okay, Washington County to Don Bowman. If you want to develop in Williamsport for your truck parking or your truck stop or whatever we're planning there, new traffic study needed. Ron?
The state says no, the county says yes. The county says the traffic study's over 3 years old and they have to do another one. At the end of the day, and the traffic study's done, nothing's going to change from what it was before. It's highway interchange zoning. We made it highway interchange zoning years ago, and I'm sorry, but that's what it was for. That's what the half-a-mile radius was for. I think it should be highway interchange zoning,
And you
and what
think-
they put there should be able to go there.
Build the.
We have one in Morgansville on Showalter Road, posing no problems to us.
Right, Henry?
It's the proposed structure there is in accordance with what Ron has stated as an interstate zone within a half mile. I don't know why our local county government feels compelled to ask for another traffic study when the state is already saying, listen, it's good.
Potentially to appease the residents there?
Since when has our local county government tried to appease the residents?
No, I won't speak to that,
Okay.
but is that a possibility, Ron, do you think?
I'm sure it is. I'm sure there's, in fact, there's still a lawsuit ongoing
Right.
about one of the decisions. That suit won't be held till February.
Which I think they will lose.
And in Morgansville, they went to put it, at Showalter Road, Love's Travel Plaza. That was appealed to 3 different courts, and they finally lost in all of them.
Right.
And because they had done it right.
Well, that's right, and I think they did it right in Williamsport too.
Yes, I do too.
Okay, that's all the time we have for tonight. We hope you will like us on Facebook. We hope you'll follow us on Twitter. We hope you will send us your feedback and suggestions to feedback@flipsidetv.com. That's feedback@theflipsidetv.com. Most importantly, please join us again next week for another visit to The Flip Side. Good night.